Vrindavanam ki jai, Mathuram ki jai.
Prabhus, ladies and gentlemen, His Holiness Bear Krishna Maharaj, esteemed guests, Ran Govinda, Dr. Sarmani, and all the wonderful devotees of Sankirtan Puri and New Talavana Farm. Welcome. Welcome to our very humble and significant, though, I think, worship and glorification of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada's visit on August 1st, 1975! Haribol!
The more we become elevated from ignorance to knowledge, that is success of life. And if we keep ourselves in ignorance, that is spoiling the life.
Of my spiritual master's divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Even though Srila Prabhupada had only visited for a few hours, every place that a pure devotee goes to becomes a holy place. So this place that we're sitting on, even though it's so warm today, we're actually getting purified by the concrete. Yes. Because Prabhupada's presence is here. And for those of us who are not always sitting here in the hot concrete, we can connect with Prabhupada through his Vani, which is really important. Prabhupada's Vani means his instructions, his words, his presentation of the philosophy. Prabhupada said what would please him the most is the cooperation and love and trust. Not just external cooperation, but the love and loving relationships and the caring relationships and the serving relationships that the devotees have with each other. Like if we hear Prabhupada's instructions that he just gave about spreading Krishna consciousness, being punctual in the deity worship, establishing this wonderful farm community. If we have that attitude, this movement will expand exponentially, and then we will personally be Krishna conscious. But more important, Prabhupada's desire to create a revolution in the misdirected lives of an impious civilization will be realized. So, thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
I'm going to kind of capitalize on what Srila Prabhupada said yesterday when we heard. He was talking about the fruit, and he said, variety is the spice of life. We each have an individual relationship with Krishna, and that Krishna is everywhere, and he used the example that, and it's appropriate today, that you can't separate the sunshine from the sun. Krishna is the sun, but you can't say where there's sunshine, there is no Krishna. Krishna is everywhere. It's like the sun and the sunshine. So as we reflect on that in old age, as I've been, we moved here when the farm first opened. I was cutting sugar cane and doing the things that we would do to keep the farm up. So I was very much active, but as we can see now, I'm 70 years old, I'm in a wheelchair. But I'm the same person. I'm the same person that I was then, I'm the same person that I am now. I'm a servant of Srila Prabhupada, I'm a servant of Krishna, I'm a servant of all of you. So that's what I found in my life, that everywhere I go, even though I'm not able to preach as much as everybody else, and I certainly do as much scripture as everybody, but I'm able to serve everybody in some capacity and share with them some of my realization of Krishna. And I think just whatever we can do, that's what I realize about Krishna consciousness for each one of us. Krishna has us particularly like a play or like a, I'm from motion pictures, everybody has a role to play in the ISKCON movement. It's been defined by Krishna. We've come to earth to do that. Find what your role is to advance Srila Prabhupada's movement, and then you'll be happy. I've found what my role is, and I'm happy with that, and I just beg you to find the same thing. Haribol. Thank you very much.
Bhagavatam lecture by Srila Prabhupada. He spoke about something we might think is very, very simple and elementary. How Maharaj Bharat was, he fell in affection for a deer, and then when he left his body, he had to take on a deer's body. He could remember his situation, and then he became John Bart later on. So this helps us to understand sometimes, even though we hear the same thing over and over again, if we could get some realization how the material body is very temporary. Just for example, if we're taking care of some other devotee, maybe ill, nearing leaving the body time, and we may think, oh my God, this is a decaying body. I'm fearful, I don't want to be around this situation. But that is not the way to look at it, because we see the spirit soul is there, and the spirit soul cannot be burned by fire, withered by the wind. The spirit soul is eternal. And so Srila Prabhupada is helping us to understand how if we can associate with and serve some devotee who's very elderly or needed some help, it is a wonderful thing. It is not a fearful thing that someone's body is not working properly. But Krishna may bless us with this kind of service sometime. That's what I got from the class. Thank you, Haribol.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to try to glorify our beloved spiritual master. I was a student when Srila Prabhupada came, so I had been regularly visiting the temple for years. And I would go to the morning program, and I would hear Bhagavatam class, and then after I would go off to college. You know, at that time in ISKCON, college was not recommended, let's just say that. I was kind of discouraged. And I was constantly, not ridiculed, but encouraged just to quit college and move into the temple. Move into the temple. Move into the temple. So, in Bhagavatam class, I was always very enthused to ask questions, to learn more. So I would do that practically daily. I would ask questions. So when Srila Prabhupada came, I found out later there was going to be a darshan. So the temple president at the time, Nityananda Prabhu, because I would ask him so many questions, he came up with a clever idea. He came up to me as we're waiting outside to go to the darshan. And he said, Bhakta Vic, you ask the first question. And I became instantly nervous. How am I going to ask Srila Prabhupada a question? I had many questions I wanted to ask him, and I did ask him probably at least 6 or 7 questions, but I'm thinking what to ask Prabhupada. So everyone enters the room, we sit down, Srila Prabhupada is right there, and all of a sudden I just blurt out, Srila Prabhupada, should everyone move to the temples? Prabhupada is saying he was so sharp. He was like ahead of you. And so his answer was, we do not object. Then he said, and this is what struck me, he said, but who is coming? So I took that personally, because I hadn't moved in yet. So that was kind of the clincher for me to move into the temple. When I finished my college, I got my degree at the University of New Orleans, went from the graduation ceremony straight, got in my car and drove straight to the temple. Was on the brahmachari ashram floor that night with all the brahmacharis, and the next morning attending the morning program, and then out selling incense. What I remember about being in Srila Prabhupada's presence, I mean, I'm from Kenner. Yogi's from Kenner. Tapan, close to Kenner. We had a lot of devotees join from that area. I never saw anyone's aura in my whole life. But I swear, you could see Prabhupada had an aura. You could see. When you were in his presence, it was like time stood still. In the darshan also was Srila Prabhu's mother. And she had back problems. So she was sitting against the wall with her feet out on the floor. And anyone who's listened to the tape of Srila Prabhupada chanting japa, we've all heard the words, sit properly. So Srila Prabhupada actually told Rikadara's mother, my aunt, Flo, sit properly. And she did. Whatever back problem she had no problem putting her feet instantaneously. She came up to me and she said, that was the closest I felt to God in my entire life. She was so impressed with Srila Prabhupada. For us to be in his presence just for a minute, just for a day, is just something we all know, we remember the rest of our lives. There was a man sitting behind me with a turban on, silk turban. And he would ask questions in this vein. He said, can you speak to us? One of his questions was, can you speak to us of love? And Srila Prabhupada immediately said, Krishna is love. At some part of the darshan, this gentleman, unbeknownst to me, because he was sitting behind me, and he got up to leave. And Srila Prabhupada was sitting literally right across the desk from me. And his tone of voice was the same throughout the entire darshan. All of a sudden, though, Srila Prabhupada, his voice was so powerful. It sounded like he screamed, but he goes, where are you going? And it just shocked me. I couldn't move. I knew I wasn't going to move. I wasn't going to go anywhere. And the gentleman explained he had some previous engagement that he had committed to and he had to leave. So from that strong, powerful voice, Srila Prabhupada turned to Nityananda. There was a big bowl of fruit sitting on the table. He told Nityananda, give him some prasadam. He said those 4 words, give him some prasadam. But the sound of Srila Prabhupada's voice was so filled with love, it just touched my heart. And I had the realization that this is what Srila Prabhupada is about. He just wants to give everyone Krishna. He wants to give Krishna to everyone in whatever way he can. Quickly, I'll just say one pastime here. We got to eat prasadam that Srila Prabhupada cooked. Just a taste. So, we're all here by Srila Prabhupada's grace and because of our love for Srila Prabhupada. So thank you, Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna.
At that fraternity, 5 people became devotees. Quite unlikely. Nobody would have ever thought these people would become devotees. So I was one. My friend Brikudara, Vedanta Cook's cousin, Tapan Mishra, in the meantime, went to San Francisco and joined at our San Francisco temple and came back in 1975, right before Srila Prabhupada came here. A 4th person was a devotee named Kalakshara. Kalakshara was a good-looking, strong person. And he couldn't stay at the New Orleans temple. We were rinky dink. So he went to Chicago. I believe he was initiated in Chicago and joined the biggest book distribution party in his town at that time.
and worked under those devotees and became initiated Kalakshara. The last person was a close friend in the fraternity with myself, whose name was Roy Roberts, not Roy Rogers, but Roberts. And so Roy became Satyavrata. He lives in California, so I think that's my 5 minutes. However, Prabhupada made these people devotees, initiated them, and taken us back home to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki.
By Krishna's mercy, another great servant of Srila Prabhupada has arrived. His Grace, Dwi Bhuchadas Adhikari Ki! And I'm going to humbly request him to say a few words. And of course, he can speak for 5 hours, 5 days, 5 years about the glories of Srila Prabhupada.
You know, I was a new brahmachari, so I was really very nervous seeing Srila Prabhupada. I thought, I opened the driver's door. I thought, let the driver open. I didn't want to be so bold to open Srila Prabhupada's door, you know. I just was scared. And so then I offered my obeisances, of course, and then Srila Prabhupada looked at me like, who is this for? Just like that. You know the look. And I just, you know, I was just so afraid. You know, I didn't know how to act. But now, those looks mean so much to me, you know, because I can remember those. I can't remember a lot of things, but I can remember those glances of Srila Prabhupada looking at us. So merciful. So then he came in, and along the back wall there were these windows you'll see in the pictures, but they had no screens. And so it was raining, it started raining, and the flies were coming in. Just like 1,000 flies, and they landed over Sri Prabhupada, all over his face, right? And the devotee there, Jagakarta Prabhu, was standing with the chamara, but he was standing about 3 feet away. And Prabhupada said, you can come closer with the chamara. He said, that's what it's meant for. He said, even if it touches, there's no harm. Like that. So, but Jagakarta was still scared. So, Lakshmi Narayan, is that from Houston? He jumped up and grabbed the chamara, and he went right up on Srila Prabhupada and got all the flies off of him. So the realization was that's what the chamara, when you're in the forest, you know, Sukadev Goswami giving a lecture, the flies are going to be insects, so they have the chamara, not just ceremonially, but to keep the insects off. And so I always said we should remember that, and when we incorporate a festival for Srila Prabhupada, we could do the Festival of the Chamara, where everybody remembers that pastime, that leela. Yeah, I don't remember a foot washing. I don't remember prasadam being provided either. What we would do now, if Srila Prabhupada came, we would be a lot more collecting. So, anyway, Srila Prabhupada gave the lecture, and it was so, it was amazing that you know, you sit there. I only remember like one basic thing that he said, basically. That, he said, you can go back home, back to Godhead in this lifetime. And then he looked at, I'm not flattering you. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. And then he went into the room, the office, where you'll, I'm sure we'll do the tour, show you what the different places are. He went in the office, and they had a big map of the aerial photograph of the farm and stuff like that. And he's looking at everything, and he's saying, so what is the plan? You know, first thing is, what is the plan? And so the devotees, you know, and Prabhupada's sitting there, you know, and he's talking and just, you know, back and forth, light conversation. And then he said, so let's cook. Like that. You know, it never does that. His servant said he never cooked. So they went in the kitchen, and about 1,000 devotees gathered around him. And Prabhupada said, not so many, just one woman to assist. Like that. And in his lecture, he had also praised Mother Govinda a lot for starting the Tulsi in our movement. So, you know, these things were showing that Prabhupada was always very cognizant of his lady disciples. You know, he was always very praising them. So in the kitchen, he said, not so many, just one lady to assist. And so, you know, some of us, I went outside and just kind of looked through the window a little bit. And then Srila Prabhupada said, let's go for a walk. Of course, that'll come this afternoon, the walk part. So. That's my memories of Srila Prabhupada. Thank all of you for allowing me to speak.